Have you ever noticed how deeply tired you are? Not just physically, but in your soul, a kind of exhaustion that rest doesn't fix. You're tired of trying, tired of forcing, of pushing against time, expectations, responsibilities, against people, and worst of all, against yourself. This isn't the loud kind of struggle. It's silent, almost invisible, a constant background noise in your existence. You pressure yourself endlessly. Be more productive, more stable, more positive, more focused. You push through relationships that no longer make sense. Force yourself into routines that feel lifeless. Make decisions your heart isn't ready for. And the more you try to control, the more life slips through your fingers, like water, like sand, like life itself. What begins as a noble effort to improve becomes a prison of tension. You wake up in a war and the enemy is everything: the day, the world, your own expectations. You don't realize it, but you are drowning in resistance. This is the real weight you carry. And it's in this exhaustion that a powerful concept enters, quietly, but with the force to change everything. Wu Wei, an ancient Taoist principle, Alan Watts translated as acting without forcing. But don't misunderstand. Wu Wei is not about laziness or giving up. It's not passive. It is one of the most courageous expressions of trust and wisdom. Wu Wei is the art of flowing with life, not wrestling it. Like a dancer who doesn't fight the rhythm, but lets it guide their body, or a surfer who waits for the wave, doesn't fight the ocean, but rides in harmony with its power. Wu Wei is not inaction. It is aligned action, intelligent, intuitive, timed. It's stepping into the current instead of battling against it. Now ask yourself, how many moments in your day do you resist what is? How often do you try to force outcomes that aren't ready? How many choices are born from fear? Fear of falling behind, of losing control, of not being enough. Since childhood, we've been taught to achieve through effort, persistence, and control. But what if this belief is the very thing that disconnects us from peace? What if control isn't strength, but fear in disguise? Wu Wei invites us to stop fighting the river and instead learn how to navigate with it. It's the exhausted rower becoming the wise sailor, adjusting the sails, feeling the wind, moving with the rhythm of the sea. Alan Watts described it perfectly. When you stop trying to force life, something magical begins to happen. The right people appear. The right answers emerge. Not because you chased them down, but because you created space. Space for clarity, space for intuition, space for life itself. Wu Wei is not about quitting. It's about remembering that you were never meant to control everything. It's stepping out of panic and into awareness. It's trading struggle for trust. And that shift, from grasping to allowing, is the doorway to an entirely different way of living. One that isn't ruled by stress or fear or urgency, but by presence. If you're still here listening, it's because something in you is already waking up. Something inside you is whispering, there's another way. And you're right. Wu Wei is not a poetic philosophy. It's a practice, a key, a shift in how you relate to existence. It asks you to pause, to breathe, to notice what you've been forcing. We were never taught this art of letting go. We were taught to compete, to measure, to push harder. And so we became anxious, disconnected adults, always chasing a life that always seems just out of reach. But what if what you seek isn't somewhere far ahead, but already within you? What if it's simply been buried beneath the noise of trying? Real peace, not the surface-level kind made of slogans and affirmations, but the deep kind, the kind that lets you breathe fully, comes not from controlling more, but from surrendering wisely. So now, inhale and let your shoulders drop. Let go, just for this moment. You don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need to solve your whole life today. You just need to be here. This is where it begins. In the next part of our journey, we'll go deeper into the roots of Wu Wei, into the ancient wisdom of Taoism and Zen, philosophies that don't just teach you about life, but help you experience it with your entire being. And to guide us across this bridge between East and West, we'll meet the man who translated these ancient truths for the modern world, Alan Watts. But for now, ask yourself one quiet question. Where am I still forcing life? Just noticing that, en avant dire, without judgment, is already a beginning. Because awareness is the seed of change, and that's where this journey of peace truly begins. Imagine a time when words like Tao, Zen, Wu Wei, or even meditation were met in the West with raised eyebrows. They were seen as curiosities, strange relics from faraway cultures, something foreign minds might explore, but never truly live. In that world, fragmented by logic, stress, and a desperate thirst for control, one man emerged who refused to see the East as other. He saw it as essential, a key to something Western thought had long forgotten: how to live with peace in chaos, how to act without anxiety, how to simply be. His name was Alan Watts, and his voice, rich, clear, and full of poetic depth, would go on to awaken a generation of restless souls looking for more than achievement, more than discipline, more than the dry promises of a future that never quite arrives. Alan Watts wasn't a monk in a robe or a guru on a mountaintop. He was a philosopher, a rebel, a storyteller, and a deeply human man. Born in England in 1915, he was raised in a Christian environment, studied theology, and was deeply fascinated by mysticism. But the rigid dogma and dualistic thinking of Western religion left him unsatisfied. He was drawn to something more fluid, more experiential, something he first glimpsed in the ancient texts of the Tao Te Ching and in the Zen koans that didn't offer answers, but instead dissolved the very questions. By his early 20s, Watts had already written books that explored the intersections between Eastern and Western thought. But it wasn't until he moved to the United States and began giving lectures on Taoism, Zen, and Vedanta that his voice truly began to echo across generations. Watts didn't just translate ancient philosophies, he made them come alive. He didn't speak to academics, he spoke to you, to the artist doubting their worth, to the student lost in pressure, to the adult drowning in the monotony of goals. He brought Taoism down from the temple and into your daily commute. He took Zen out of its monastery and placed it beside your morning coffee. He showed us that these were not mystical escapes from life, but radical invitations to return to it, to stop racing ahead and to start noticing the breeze, the breath, the sound of footsteps on a rainy street, the feeling of simply being here. What made Watts so transformative was not just what he said, but how he said it. He had this way of turning complexity into simplicity, not by dumbing it down, but by feeling it deeply. When he spoke of Wu Wei, it wasn't theory, it was a reflection of life itself. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone, he once said, reminding us that not everything requires effort. Some things just need space. He reminded us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be danced. That you don't play music to get to the end of the song. You play it to enjoy the melody. And perhaps most radically, he reminded us that you are not separate from life. You are not a stranger lost in the universe. You are the universe, aware of itself for a brief, beautiful moment. But Watts wasn't perfect. He drank too much. He lived on the edge of discipline. And maybe that's part of why people trusted him. He wasn't preaching from a pedestal. He was walking the same confusing road as the rest of us, just with a lantern in his hand. He never claimed to have all the answers. In fact, he warned us about people who do. His gift was not certainty. It was wonder. Not commandments, but questions. He didn't tell you how to live. He simply pointed you toward the parts of yourself you've been taught to ignore. Your intuition, your stillness, your capacity to feel truth rather than define it. Alan Watts was a bridge, not just between East and West, but between intellect and experience, between effort and surrender, between noise and silence. And through that bridge flowed a message that is more urgent now than ever. You are not broken. You don't need to force your life into perfection. You don't need to prove yourself to the world. You need only remember the dance, the flow, the rhythm that existed long before you were born and will continue long after. Watts believed that if we could stop resisting reality, stop fighting what is, then life would begin to reveal its secrets. Not through logic, but through presence. And that's what makes his work eternal. Because no matter how much the world changes, the core of human suffering remains the same. We resist what is. We cling to control. We try to dominate time, emotions, relationships, even ourselves. Watts saw this clearly, and instead of condemning us for it, he offered a new way, not a new religion, not a new dogma, but a return. A return to the quiet intelligence of nature, to the Tao, to the breath, to now. He opened the West to ideas that once seemed too soft, too foreign, too mystical, and revealed that they were never foreign at all. They were always ours. Waiting in the silence, waiting in the stillness. So as we continue this journey, we don't just study Alan Watts. We listen to what he listened to, the silence beneath words, the space between action and reaction, the life that moves not by force, but by flow. In the next chapter, we'll enter the core of Wu Wei as a living practice. We'll explore how to apply it, not in the abstract, but in the very heart of modern life, in work, in relationships, in moments of uncertainty. Because philosophy is only valuable when it changes how you live, how you breathe, how you see. And that's exactly what we'll begin to uncover next.